What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Old Volks TV. Today we're dealing with a familiar problem on this bus. We've got this nasty oil leak from the axle seals here, creating pinwheel art on our rim and just generally making a mess of things. We did the other side a while back and did it like 5 times until Gary told me about this little spacer that you got to replace in there that I had no idea. And that finally fixed it. So thanks to Gary from VW Life for that tip. So today we're going to take this apart. We're going to get this wheel off and the drum off, which is the hardest part. And I'm going to show you how to fix your axle seals. I think it's the same bug to bus. It might be a little bit different here or there, but in any case, you'll have a general idea of what you need to do and all the tools you need to do it. So let's jump in a little bit closer and we'll start pulling this wheel off and I'll show you what we got to do. Alright, so we could see already, now that we've got the wheel off and everything, how gross this is, and it's actually leaked out past the inside of the wheel and got all on the outside of the drum here. A little rust preventative, as they say. Super gross, it stinks. Something else that's not good is I put this on here, and just from putting it on there, I'm not even kidding, I didn't put a breaker bar or anything on it. This thing was just that loose. I've never had this side off, and I don't think it's been off since I've had the bus. But I'm not that strong, and this is supposed to be, I'll have to look up the torque spec. I'll put it somewhere around here. But it's a lot, and it's more than you should be able to get off just by hand, so you know, that's not good. Could be part of the problem. Man, that I hate the smell of gear oil. Get it on you and you can just never get it off. Keep lots of rags handy. I've got the little tote here to catch the gear oil or whatever if anything comes off. I got the parking brake set because I was trying to get the, usually you set the parking brake, it makes it easier to get the lug nuts off and get the axle nut off. So let me go unset the brake and chock the wheel real quick and we'll get this drum off. Okay, brakes are off, wheels are chocked. Ugh. Nasty. So nasty. Okay. So now what we got in here, you know, you got your shoes and everything. We got our springs for our parking brake and our little tensioners. What we want to do is get this plate off right here. And there's 4 bolts that hold that on. And that's pretty much it. That kind of holds the whole assembly. So we're going to clean this with a little brake cleaner. And it's okay to get it on the shoes because it's brake cleaner. We'll wipe them off after. This will get all the kind of the crap off just so we can see what we're dealing with in there. Kind of give it a light spray and let it soak for a minute and then come back, it'll break everything up. This also helps with getting the crap off of the bolts so the bolts can come loose a little easier. Oh, it's really coming out down here. You can see that. Nasty. It's leaking. It shouldn't be leaking like that at all. Nothing should be coming out of there. So that's how you know you got a bad seal. Oh, the smell, you guys. The smell. Oh, Okay, let's let that soak for a second. We'll come back and give it a little wire brush, and then I'm going to disconnect the e-brake spring and just kind of get that out of the way. And we'll have access to this plate and all the seals and everything that's in there. We can press the new seal into the housing, we'll put the spacer in, you know, clean everything up, and that's pretty much it. Easy. Everything's nice and dry and clean except for where it's gooping out the bottom here, where it shouldn't be. So I'm gonna, if you kind of force this over a little bit, you can get that e-brake spring off. Just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of goes wherever. And then take your 14s. Yeah, see, these aren't even tight. Yeah, these are all loose. I'm surprised this wasn't leaking sooner. The nice thing about these plastic totes also is that if you drop your hardware in there, it's easy to get out, versus the pan style where you know, you lose something in there, you got to go fishing around for it. This style, it all drains into the top, and then it has a little screen that'll sort of catch everything. There we go. 4 bolts. This has a ton of RTV on it too. Take our little, gently tap it. And get it loose. There we go. Gently is the key. There it is. It's pretty gross, but all this should come off. Oh, look at that, came right off. We'll clean this in the ultrasonic, get all that groupy, nasty stuff out of there. This is the seal that we're going to be replacing, and I have a tool for that, so we'll show you how that works. Really pay attention to how this stuff all comes off. You have your little O-ring, or what should be an O-ring. There's a little lip in here. It's got a, see if I can grab that. Not really. They put a lot of RTV in there, which you're not really supposed to use a lot of RTV in there, because there is a weep hole at the bottom. That's supposed to let that kind of, you know, weep. This one didn't even have the spacer in there. How could that be? That's so weird. It should have the, should have a little spacer in there, which is the piece I had to replace on the last one. There's some more of that seal. That's the inner race. Yeah, that's so weird. Oh, that's why. Ha! It was still attached to the drum, it was cooked on there. So we got us a new one. Here's the part number, in case you're playing along at home. Wolfsburg West part number of that. I'll link that down below as well. But this goes in there. Then you put this cap on, you know, and it all seals up nice. And the problem is, the new ones if you look at the old one, they'll be shiny, and they should not be shiny. So what happens is they get worn out on this inner surface right in here. So this part gets worn out. See how it has kind of a step in it. The new one doesn't have that little lip out here, so it shouldn't. And these go this way with the larger ring towards the drum, and that's what spaces the drum off the backing plate so that everything, you know, is right. I'll keep this, but I'm gonna mark it as bad because, like I said, we got the new one, and I did the other side 5 times before we figured it out. So if you're gonna order this kit to replace the seals, which is this part number right there, axle seal kit, Wolfsburg West. It does not come with that spacer. You got to order that spacer separately. It's like 20 bucks, but it's super worth it, because I will never do one again without putting that seal on there, because I did it so many times and it didn't fix the problem. So we're gonna get this all cleaned up here, get all this RTV out with a pick, and when that's all clean, this should be done in the ultrasonic. You know, we'll get that all cleaned up as well, and we'll start reassembly. Alright, so now it's all clean and it's all dry, as good as I can get it without scratching up that surface. One thing also that I figured I could show you while we're down here, semi-related, on the top you got your fill hole for your gear oil, and that takes this here 17mm Allen tool to pull the fill hole out. Down here, it's gonna be really hard to see, but somewhere down here on the bottom, right about there, is the drain. It takes the same tool. It's just like that. It's the same thing. This is to drain the gear oil out of your reduction box here. This is a good time to do it. You got your reduction boxes, you got your axle, you got your transmission way back there, which for some reason when I jacked mine up, started leaking from the boots. So we're gonna have to fix that too. I think they just need to be tightened down because those boots are brand new. They may just be a little weepy. But if you drain the fluid from the bottom, you know, you take the top off just so that it can drain quicker. I always like to put the cap back on just so stuff doesn't get down inside there. That'll stop the ooze from down here, because now your gearbox is empty. So now we can tack the new seals on there and assemble everything. Put the bottom plug back in there in a second, and we can fill these up. And these don't take much. It's like a few ounces. Again, I'll put that right there, how much it goes in there, but it's not much. It's like a few ounces. I filled it up all the way one time and it just leaked all over the place. They don't need much. So assembly is pretty easy. You've got these little gaskets. Notice this little tab with a hole in it at the bottom matches up with your hole in the bottom down there. You just need the one, as far as I know. We're not going to use a lot of the stuff out of this kit. We don't need those washers. We don't need that big old O-ring. There's a little tiny O-ring that goes in there. It's this little guy that's going to slide on. It's pretty hard to do, but I find that if you dip it in the gear oil first, it'll go on a lot easier. It's not very stretchy. It's a pretty stiff rubber. But you got to get it up in the little groove up here nice and tight. And then we slide our new spacer on, and that O-ring sits inside the groove here. So the new spacer will go on, and then our nice clean plate with the new seal will go in there. So should go nice and easy. This is the new seal, and this is what's going to get pressed into this. And I cleaned this up in the ultrasonic. Man, if you don't have one, highly recommend getting one. I hit it with a little brass brush. Brass doesn't scour the steel or gouge it, so we're not creating any new pathways for leaks. The brass is a little bit softer, so it'll get all the junk out. You got to make sure this little weep hole down here at the bottom, right inside there, you can see there's like a little channel. That's where it comes in and it goes out there if any oil does get past it. So make sure you get out any crap that's in there. There we go. You can see nice and clear. So you want to make sure that's nice and clear, otherwise you may have a problem later. And then I put the bolts back in here and chased the threads out, just because there was some RTV left in there from the last guy. We're going to use a little bit of gasket cinch on there, but not a ton. I just like it because it keeps that in place while I, kind of line everything up. But we're not trying to make a gasket, we're just trying to make a gasket stick. Remember to put your e-brake back on the little tang here, so that you have an e-brake when you're done. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so for this bearing, or bearing seal rather, you got to push this in there. There's a little spring. You want to make sure you don't lose that. And you can't reuse the old one. So what you do is this fits in there, but you got to get it in there perfectly straight the whole way down. And the way that we do that is with this tool that I dropped. It's a bearing seal tool or whatever. It comes in a little kit like this, which has several different sizes. And you kind of thread it in this little handle, and you want to pick the size that fits snug right into your, just like this. See there? It fits nice and perfect all the way around. So it puts even pressure into that as you gently persuade it with a hammer. It didn't go even. There it goes. As you can see on the gasket, just a really light coat on one side. We don't need a whole lot. We're not trying to make a gasket. This thing's in good shape. It's not all full of pits or anything. And we carefully put that in place. Tack it all down so it doesn't move. I put it on there and I let it sit for a couple minutes, not too long, but just long enough to get tacky. That'll all get down nice. And then on the inside of the bearing cover here, I did the same thing. I just put a real light coat on there. Take our little O-ring, some nice gear lube on there, and kind of get it over the teeth of that, and then it'll slide right in just like that. Did I? Yeah, that goes like that. There it is. Pushes up against that seal, pushes up against that O-ring. Then we're gonna crank these down just by hand for now, and we're gonna give that a little bit to for that gasket stuff to cure out before we really crank it down to torque. I think, well, I'm not even gonna say it. I'm gonna look it up. torque spec on these. It's not very much. I'll put it right here. Beauty of editing. So we'll get these just sort of hand cinched down for now, and then we'll come back and get them tight in about 20 minutes or so. It'll give me time to clean up a little bit and find my gear oil so I can refill this box. Alright, we'll come back. Put it on by hand as tight as I can get it, and then I'll actually run it down to the tire store down the street, and I'll have them get it torqued to spec for me. You know, slip the guy 10 bucks or 20 bucks, whatever, and just have them shoot it on there and get it the right right torque. So I'm just gonna put this on by hand real quick. I'm going to use my little cheater bar over there and get it nice and snug, just so it doesn't have any play on it, and it should be good if I take it easy, just to get it a couple miles down the road. So I'm going to torque that down nice and tight, and then we'll refill our box, and then we'll climb underneath and find out why half my transmission fluid is now on the floor just from jacking it up. I suspect the boots because they look a little wet, but we'll do that and we'll see. So let's move this camera around so I can put some muscle on there. Alright, there we have it. One axle seal replacement. The one that came out was pretty dang gross. And it just was leaking everywhere, and the fluid in the gearbox didn't look good. So now we know how to fill those gearboxes up. The leak coming out of my boots was just a loose hose clamp. I don't know why it started leaking when I cranked it up, but should be good now. It's not dripping anymore. I topped off the fluid in the transmission, topped off the fluid in the gearboxes, cleaned this so that it's dry, so I know after I drive around a little bit, if it's wet, then you know we didn't do a good job, but I feel like we got it. Putting that spacer in there is pretty key to making them not leak anymore. So the one that came out, I'm sure, was the original one. It looked pretty wasted. So good now. Need to replace a few hubcap clips, and I can get my hubcaps back on. I think it's going to help with the look of the bus a lot better. At least now we're mechanically in good shape so far. So you can do it. I'll link to the parts down below, and you can find them for yourself. Just a few hand tools. I didn't use anything exotic. There was no, you know, impacts or anything. The only thing that was crazy was the bearing seal kit, which you can get from AutoZone for free. If you just go rent one, they take a deposit and then they give you your money back when you're done. Take the seal with you, make sure that you have the right size. Don't use a socket like some of these internet yahoos do. You'll damage that seal and you're just gonna have a leak again, and you're gonna have to get back in there and do it the right way. So, you know, get the kit. I mean, if you want to buy the kit, they're like 40 bucks. I'll link to that too, why not? But you can get them for free from Amazon if you're just gonna do one real quick and you're on a budget. That whole gasket kit with the spacer and everything cost me less than 30 bucks shipped from Wolfsburg West. So it's not too expensive. And it took me, I mean, real time, a couple hours. That's with filming. Filming makes everything take longer, so I feel like you can do it. So go do it. I know your car's leaking. Go do it. Take care of it. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.